Please join me in welcoming Linda.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming. Am I too loud?
No.
You can hear me? Good. Thank you so much for the nice introduction, and thank you to all my friends and colleagues who are here today. I'm really pleased to see such a great turnout. Ifma has helped me tremendously, and I'm really glad to see so many people here today. So let's get started. So should I stay or should I go? Retrofit, renovate, or relocate? I am the facilities manager for a 100-year-old global engineering firm. I've done a combination of 15 office moves or retrofits in the past 5 years. Here's a true story. The first day on my new job, I received an email from a principal partner asking me to retrofit 4 double-wide trailers at a client site in 90 cubicles. And I thought, what did I get myself into? So it was pretty intense. So how many of you have been involved with moving an office? Just about everybody. How about retrofitting in space, in your current place? And how about renovating in a current space? So as you can see, this affects every facilities manager, vendors as well. As you know, this is a major undertaking to be done on top of your day job, and there are many participants involved with each office upgrade. This presentation will dive into the entire process step by step, so you will come away feeling organized and confident, not overwhelmed by your renovation or relocation project. For those with large real estate portfolios, I'll be sharing helpful standardization tips. Don't recreate the wheel for every project. Every facilities manager is faced with the decision to renew their current lease or to relocate. So today you will learn steps to take the factors into making the decisions whether to stay or to relocate. First and foremost, you have to be organized. That goes without saying. You need to start your due diligence well in advance. Today you will learn to gain a better understanding of how the ABCs of the experts can help you. You'll learn when and where to begin this process, including steps for a successful project. You'll need to get the vision and buy-in from management. What is their wish list? What is the scope of the project? You'll do a strategic needs analysis. Of course, you'll need a budget, your value engineering, and your schedule. During the research process, I take the feedback from upper management and connect with our national real estate broker. After determining the size of the space, I'll fly out and meet the broker and view the selected properties in person. Based on location, price, and needs, I'll recommend 1 to 2 properties to the president and then fly out and show him the space. Once we have the president's approval, then we show the local managing director for their buy-in. Then the lease process begins. With that being said, how soon should you evaluate your real estate needs? Larger leases can take up to 2 years of planning. For a smaller lease, you should start at least 9 months to a year in advance. There's lots of things to do to decide where you want to relocate or if you want to stay in place. And remember, business drives real estate, not the other way around. You'll need to identify your company's needs. What is the size of the workforce? Are you going to grow or reduce in size in the next few years? Will you need hoteling cubes? Will you need virtual space? What type of collaborative space or conference rooms will you need? Of course, furniture is a major factor as well. And what kind of equipment will you need? So the ABCs of any project is enlisting helps from the experts. You'll need a real estate attorney, a real estate broker, and consultants, such as architects and designers, audiovisual experts, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and fire protection engineers, and of course your general contractor. So what is the scope of the project? What is on management's wish list? What do they want to accomplish in this project? Are they striving to achieve LEED certification? Being an environmental firm, it was important for our Chicago headquarters office project to become LEED certified. As you know, LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. We are the only company in my building that is LEED certified. So what are the pros and cons versus staying versus relocating? What kind of new features or upgrades will be offered in a new space? How much business interruption will you have? That is so important. You do not want downtime with clients. What kind of reduced rent or savings will you incur? What type of renewal options will you be given? You also want to have the right of first refusal on expansion options in a new space. And of course, free rent. The basic rule of thumb, depending on the market, is you should target to receive 1 month of free rent for every year of lease term, meaning in a 5-year lease, you should get 5 months of free rent up front. The longer the lease, the more free rent you should negotiate to receive. So what is more advantageous, staying or relocating? What amenities are being offered? Do they have on-site daycare? Do they have a gym at a new facility? Do they have parking in the building? What are you looking for? You'll need to know what is the future growth of this location. The goal is to have the landlord pay for the entire build-out, as long as you stay within their standard line of materials offered. You may have to do some value engineering and remove some of the items not covered and what the landlord is willing to pay for to stay within your budget. For example, you may have to choose different lighting, a certain grade of carpeting, or even paint or baseboard trim may need to be different, unless, of course, you agree to pay the difference. That's where your line item budgeting will come into play. You need to know your dates of your lease expirations. To keep organized, I maintain an Excel spreadsheet of the expiration dates of each office in chronological order. I also keep a year's worth of lease expirations on my whiteboard in my office, so it's in my face as a constant reminder of the due dates. And you want to avoid holdover rent at all cost. If you do not move out by your lease expiration date, your company will incur an extra fee monthly. You need to check your lease clause at the beginning of your search under holdover rent and find out what the percentage is. It could be up to 2 times the monthly rent your company could end up paying if you don't move out by the end date. You need to research the location well in advance with your broker. And you need to know what other types of businesses are in the area. True story, one time I found a great location, but in the bottom ground floor of the building, one of the vendors was a tattoo parlor. So needless to say, we didn't want to have our offices there. So it's very important to see if there is a competitor on your floor or in your building, or what kind of services are offered also in the building. What image are you wanting to portray? So during this programming phase, we define the functional needs of the project, as well as the vision and aspirations. The functional meeting will involve interviews with key people to discuss specifics like square footage requirements, special technology needed, audio-visual requirements, and logistics. Strategic needs should also be addressed at this point. The visioning meeting will involve high-level conversations around project goals, brands, and aesthetics. A site visit should also include the leadership team to talk about important views, the workflow, and building amenities offered. So what is the vision for the new space? Have you met your goals of what you're trying to accomplish? How will you carry the branding of your company throughout your space? Will it be through signage or logos or a certain color scheme, or maybe your artwork to reflect your company? What look are you going for aesthetically? Do you want a Starbucks type feel social lounge where your employees can collaborate and have casual meetings? Or do you need a large room that can be divided into smaller functional meeting rooms? Are you going for an open floor plan or a traditional one? So conceptual and schematic design is the process of putting all of the puzzle pieces together with the goal to approve the schematic design package. Development design includes floor and ceiling plans, power and light fixture selections. During construction documentation, after the design has been approved, documenting for permitting, pricing, bidding, and construction begins. For construction administration, once the general contractor is hired and the construction documents are complete, the package can then be issued for permit and bid. At this time, you want to look into ordering long lead time items like furniture and lighting, and possibly carpeting. Now, you have to keep in mind that not everyone is going to be thrilled with the idea of moving. You have to get your staff on board and involved. When it came time to move my Philadelphia office, they had been in their space for 30 plus years. So you can imagine the shape of their current office. Imagine wooden secretarial cubes built into the wall, old outdated space with old mismatched furniture, orange carpeting. It was awful. But when showing them the new design, layout, furniture samples, they became very excited. So we rewarded them with a 10-minute office chair massage the day before the move and a pizza lunch for all of their hard work. And it went over really well. They were excited, they were all on board. And by the way, they love their new space, especially since it's just down the street. So another thing that we do is we encourage staff to submit high-quality photos for consideration to be enlarged and used as artwork to decorate our space. So not only do they feel involved, but we're a water engineering firm, so they take pictures of water and we have a contest, and the best pictures that are chosen go in a calendar that we send out to clients. But they also feel honored and privileged if their photo is chosen to be hung in the space and enlarged. So of course you need to count on your employees for assistance with packing, going through the files, weeding out what is old and doesn't need to be there anymore, and delegating certain projects in areas like the library and record center. So the move-in schedule should be completed way in advance with vendors, including receiving and submitting all certificates of insurance for building management. You'll need to make sure you obtain all of the vendor contact information and warranties on all new materials, equipment, and maintenance contracts. It's good to keep it in a binder in one place so you have it for easy reference. I've put together an alphabetical checklist that I keep in an Excel spreadsheet for each office move that I share with the local office manager, and it indicates the person responsible for the task and the completion date. This way I can monitor the status of all of the tasks that need to be complete. If you're interested in receiving a copy of this checklist, please drop off a business card to me after the meeting. And if you don't have a business card with you, I've brought mine. You can take mine and email me, and I'll be happy to share it with you. It's very helpful, and it's a tool I really can't do without. So let's go over the checklist. Appliances. In your current space, if you're going to relocate, do you have old appliances? Are you going to buy new ones if you end up moving to a new space? Is that something that could be incorporated into your lease where the landlord will pay for? I've done a space where they've done all my appliances, the dishwasher, brand new refrigerator, microwaves. It had to be within a certain budget, but that's okay. They paid for it. We talked a little bit about artwork. What type of audio-visual needs do you have? What kind of vendor will you hire to do that? You have to remember to order new business cards with the new office location well in advance and have those passed out before you move. Will you have cable TV? Will you offer that in your cafe to employees? What kind of cleaning service do they offer? Does one come with the building, or are you going to have to scout one out and hire one yourself? And then you also have to remember whatever vendors you have at the former space, you'll also have to cancel those services if it's not included in your lease through building management. What type of color scheme are you going to have throughout? Is it going to reflect your branding? Of course, you're going to want to communicate to employees throughout the entire process as to the start, the finish, what to expect, whether you're moving or renovating in place. How about conference rooms? For our conference rooms, we let our employees make suggestions to name their conference rooms to reflect perhaps their location. As I mentioned, we're a water engineering firm, so they've named conference rooms after lakes, rivers, cities, and projects. We make it fun. We make a contest out of it, and the winner gets to name the conference room. So it's pretty cool, again, getting employee participation. Deliveries, you're going to have to make sure you schedule after-hour deliveries and understand what the building rules and regulations are. And dock usage, you'll have to make sure that you schedule time for deliveries in compliance with the dock hours. So continuing on with our checklist, if you're going to donate furniture or equipment, you'll want to get donation letters from those particular organizations for tax purposes. Will you need door locks on private offices? How about electrical, voice, and data? You need to make sure you have everything you need well in advance. And for your equipment relocation, you need to schedule with the vendors. For example, did you know that you cannot move a photocopier? You have to have the vendor actually relocate the copy machine. You cannot have the mover do that because it will void the warranty. So something to know. Insurance, you'll need to make sure that you cut off the insurance at your former location at the last day of your lease and then have the new insurance of the new space the first day of the lease. What IT needs will you have? How about keys and key cards? You're going to have to return the keys and key cards from your former location and then, of course, procure the new ones well in advance and pass those out in advance to your employees. They need to know where they're going on the first day and what the business hours are. Of course, the first thing you're going to do before anything is finalize your lease. Then everything else falls into place. You'll have to assign locations. Is someone going to have an office or a cubicle? You're going to want to mail new address notifications to clients and vendors with your new information. And miscellaneous small things like code hooks and door stoppers. You know, try to get that included in the lease. Why should you pay for all these little extra things? And you want to make sure that they're there before you move in so people have a place to hang their coats. The move day schedule, you want to make sure that all the vendors and the staff and the building and management are well aware of the move schedule. You'll want to procure and interview movers well in advance. I recommend getting quotes from 3 different movers to compare the pricing. It's always good to get a recommendation. You'll need name bars for offices, cubes, and conference rooms. Are you going to take your old ones, or are you going to go for a new look? That's something you'll definitely want to have hung up on the first day that people come into the new space. You're going to need to schedule your phone relocations, and if you're going to have any downtime, you might want to send out a memo saying, like for example, I'm moving my Las Vegas office next week. I know someone's got to do it. So we're going to send out a memo to all the employees saying that at 12 o'clock the phones will be turned off to move to the new location. And in the interim, if you need to reach someone from the office, here's the office director's cell number. So it's really important to keep communications going when phones and computers are being transferred to the new location. Are you going to have a plant service? Do you have one at the former location? Do you want one at the new location? Something to think about for aesthetics. And of course, the last thing you do before you move in is you do your punch list. You walk around with the general contractor and the landlord or building manager, and you put together a punch list of all items that need to be perfected. Is there a scratch on the wall? Does the carpet not line up? Is there something that's not what you asked for? Did they remember to put the coat hooks on the back of the door? There's so many things to do. So, of course, after you move in, that punch list will grow because I'm sure walls will get scuffed and things will need to be corrected. But for the most part, in my experience, they usually come back and help you out with that. So your security deposit, you want to make sure you recoup the one from your former space and make sure it's back in broom clean condition so you can get your full security deposit back. Will you have a security system at the new space? Signage, there's many different types of signage. For indoor signage, there's lobby directory to consider, the elevator lobby on your floor, or on your front entry door as you enter the space, perhaps behind the receptionist. Outdoor signage is definitely a possibility. It doesn't always go to the biggest anchor tenant. You won't know unless you ask. You can also ask for pylon directional signage. So I'm going to skip ahead here and show you. This is my Alexandria, Virginia office. We are a one-floor tenant in this 4-story building, but we asked the landlord if we could put our signage on the top of the building, and he let us. And it didn't cost anything extra besides the price of the signage. He didn't charge us a fee to do this. So we would have never known unless we would have asked. So it looks like we own the building and that we're an anchor tenant, and we're not. So it's pretty impressive. Just something to think about. So going back to our list here, we use social media like Facebook to welcome staff to the new office and show photos of the new building. What kind of supplies are you going to have? Are you going to put whiteboards and bulletin boards in private offices? We always make chair mats a standard supply for the new space. It will help preserve the carpeting. We do it for under cubed chairs and in private offices. It really does help. And you'll want to have those supplies delivered directly to the new space. No use schlepping them to 2 different places. And sometimes they'll even put them down for you when they come. You want to make sure you order your stationery, envelopes, and mailing labels with the new address well in advance and have those ready for your first day at your new space. Your utilities, same thing, it's a dual thing. You want to make sure you turn off the utilities at your former location and have them turned on by the first day you start at the new place. Now some leases include your utilities like your electric, your water, other places don't. And some of my smaller locations I have to actually contact the utility companies, turn them off and turn them on in the new places. Here in Chicago, like in my building, it's included, so I don't have to do that. But it's something to be aware of. Are you going to have vending in your new space? You'll want to think about that and arrange for space for it as well. And then you're going to want to update your website with your new address and phone number. So you want to find out the main building management contact and get referrals for preferred vendors already doing business in the building, such as carpet cleaners, plant care service, and security system monitoring. It's so much easier to take a reference from someone than trying to start from scratch and figure out, oh, is this a good vendor, or where do I start? It's very helpful to network that way. So, scheduling with building management, what is their after-hour access? You want to make sure you understand how you're going to get in the building. What are the building rules and regulations? You really need to have those in advance and make sure your local office director has that as well. As we mentioned before, you want to have certificate of insurance for all vendors coming in and out of your building in advance to your former building and your new building. Very important. You don't want to have your furniture turned away because you don't have the certificate of insurance with the new building on file. You're going to definitely want to reserve elevator access with the building, both buildings. What is the emergency after-hour contact? What if it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday night and you're moving in and the power goes out? You're going to need to know who to call at your new space to help you out. You want to have the emergency evacuation team in place actually before you start. You're going to want to know who your team leaders are. On your first day, you're going to want to walk around the staff, show them where the exits are, and be well aware of that. And of course, you're going to want to know what the hours of operation of the building are. If they're open from 8:30 to 5, how does staff get in if they want to come in on weekends or before business hours? So that's probably where your key card system would come into effect. But you need to relay all that information to your employees. Same thing with HVAC. Is it on daily from 6 to 7? Is it on Saturdays, or do you need to schedule that? Here in Chicago, HVAC in my building is $150 an hour. So you want to make sure you know what the building HVAC is and schedule it accordingly because it's very expensive. And then you're going to want to know how to register to have a light bulb replaced, or if you need some type of housekeeping, you want to see if there's an online work order system and register who's going to be the local person to do that in advance. So, with that, I'm sure we have some questions and answers that we can give you. And does anybody have like a good story that you could share with us, perhaps something you learned from a move that you could share with us that we could learn from? Anybody? All those hands were raised that you did a move before.
I'll tell you a really funny story.
Oh, the quiet person in the back. Gayleen?
Like you, I've done tons and tons of moves. The really funny part of this move that I did one time was we had two groups, and this was our parent company and then our company. And the other guy said, you're getting a mover that's way too expensive, and I'm not going to go there. And I said, when you're moving an office, it's not always the cost that's the best thing, it's the service and who. So I went with a big firm instead of going by. And he said, no, I can save thousands if you went with, I don't know who it was, but on move day, my movers are there, all their equipment's there, and the other truck pulls up, and it's a bunch of guys that were drunk. One couldn't walk, they had no equipment, they wanted to borrow my equipment.
What time was the move?
It was in the morning.
Oh my! Maybe that's from the night before.
So this guy was always like, yelling at me because, you spend too much money, you're always trying to do the very best. But when you're talking about a mover is key.
Right, you get what you pay for.
Right, you get what you pay for. So they had to borrow our equipment. They broke the top of the elevator light. Finally, the guy came to me and begged me. Well, I'm in the middle of this move, and I said, look, you can't come to me now and have me have my movers help you. And so what we had to do is I called a favor in from one of the guys, and he sent another truck and a crew, so the guy ended up paying 3 times what he would have normally paid, so it was hysterical. And
And Gayleen, you're in the middle of a current office renovation as well, right? How's that
So I'm
going?
going to get those guys that were drinking.
That would be fun.
That'd be fun.
That can make some fun stories. But then again, I hope they have a good certificate of insurance. $1 million worth of liability, right? How about someone else? Jerry.
So, on the mover story, so one thing that I would recommend is you don't move on a weekend when the movers are negotiating with the owners of the companies all at the same time, because we were in 2006, we were moving to our brand new first move 120 people, and the movers show up at 4 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, they called an informational strike, and they pulled all the people off my move. Fortunately, the management of the company and our crew still get it done, but it was a very stressful evening. So be careful. If there's no contracts in place, it can cause you some issues.
Definitely. Oh, wow. So you all had to roll up your sleeves and help out extra, huh?
Yes, it's a little embarrassing because we're an environmental firm and we do noise studies, but when we moved to our new location in the West Loop, our conference room, when the HVAC goes on in the summer, and we could have tested for free, because that's one of the things we do, it is so noisy, it's disruptive, so you can't have the HVAC on while you have a meeting.
Oh, no.
We're having to have that reworked, so.
Yeah, you definitely want to test that out. That's where those constructional engineers come in handy.
We saved some money that didn't cost us anything, but anyway, it cost us.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm Janet Leger from White. I think it's important if you're going to remodel in place to understand that the new codes that are in place with energy codes, especially those that were just put in with the state of Illinois in January, you could find yourself with significant cost increases because you'll need, if there's a significant amount of renovation, you'll need to bring it up to code and it could cost you more than you would expect. So you need to be prepared for that.
Right, is something like motion sensors, is that, you have to do that now?
Daylight control.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know. You would think the landlord or the real estate broker would know that, but still, it's definitely good to know. I saw some more hands. Diane?
I'm Diane Bromo with Smith Owens, and I just actually finished a move on Monday
Oh.
in the Indianapolis office. One of the things out of this is now I ask up front, what is the typical lead time for the permitting? In Indianapolis, it took us over 8 weeks to get a permit. The permit process. And I'm going to be doing another move in a couple months for Milwaukee, and that was my first question. What's your lead time? Because 8 weeks was a killer.
And they shut down during the hunting season. They do nothing.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
That's a great tip, Diane. Thank you. Why don't you stand so people can see you when you speak, please? Thank you. Get your exercise.
I'm Sarah Gunter for BMS CAT, and 2 separate points. We actually moved offices about 2 years ago, and nobody ever contacted Google, so our office was still showing up as in Oswego, and our office is in Addison now, so that was a big problem. And then in my former career, make sure if you're doing custom furniture that you know the size of the elevator, because you might have to pay to have the furniture moved on top of the elevator. You might have to pay the elevator company. You might have to get extra insurance certificates. And in one case, someone actually had to cut a custom-made wooden table in half.
Oh my
because it
goodness.
wouldn't even fit inside the elevator shaft. So
That's a great tip.
yeah,
That's a great tip.
size of the elevator.
Wow. I think I saw a couple other hands. Don't shy down now because I asked you to stand. Come on. Drew.
Linda, I've got a question if that's
Sure. As long as it's a nice one.
Is there ever any value, again, most people here would say it's valuable to kind of leverage, if you're looking for a job offer, leverage one against the other. Is there ever any value in leveraging a lease or?
Absolutely. Great question. So the question is, how do you leverage your lease negotiations? So once you find out from your management team what their idea and scope is. So as I mentioned, if it's a 5-year lease, if you feel like you're going to grow or stay the same, 5 years could be a good time. Landlords like you to lock in longer leases. My Chicago lease is till 2022. My New York lease is 15 years. My Philadelphia lease is 10 years. They love us. So my Philadelphia office, again, we were a 30-year tenant, as I mentioned, and they were crushed. They were calling me every single day begging us to stay, but they didn't have a daycare center. They didn't have a health club. They did have parking in the building, but the building was old. So the new the new landlord actually offered to pay half of our early cancellation to get out of our current lease. And of course, that was a no-brainer, so that's what we did. So yeah, you want to look at a couple of different buildings, see what the price per square foot is, what are the amenities. Of course, we always insist upon doing a full build out. I might not be able to pick top grade carpeting, but that's okay as long as they're paying for everything. So yes, you definitely want to leverage a few. Of course, the class of buildings, you know, a Class A building is the nicest, best amenities, newest buildings, probably have LEED certification. So, you know, what kind of look is your company going for? Do you want a Class C building with a tattoo parlor in the lobby, or are you looking for something that is strictly business class, top of the line? So, yes, you definitely, and you can say, you know, this building down the street is offering me $13.50 a square feet, and you're charging $14 a square feet. You could definitely, legitimately take those prices and have it as a leverage. Great question. How about anyone else? Yes.
Well, in past lifetimes, having to deal with many moves for companies when I was with Iron Mountain, the biggest concerns that people had and problems was the telecommunications and internet, because when you're moving your data center and your servers, you've got to have no lapse in between there. So oftentimes you will see weekend moves or holiday moves. And the other thing is, get everybody's cell phone number, because, you know, you might call into their company, but oftentimes they're not at their desk. So those would be the recommendations I give.
That's a great point. I think my cell phone has about 450 contacts of people's cell phone numbers, no kidding, because you're right. After hours, you know, if you have to call the building manager at home because the security guard isn't answering the phone or doing a floor check.
And for the movers, too.
Absolutely.
You know,
oh, yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sharon from People Space, and I think that what's really important in any kind of relocation, renovation, retrofit, is remembering the people in the space. It's not just about the space, but trying to get them involved if your culture will support that, because I think the more you ask people what the needs are within space, the more they're going to embrace it. If you can take them to the space at some point and share that with them beforehand. I really like the idea of helping people engage with fun activities. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I think people sometimes forget is, after you've moved everything in, it hasn't stopped. There's that post-move period, setting up a team of your IT people, your facilities people, whoever's necessary, because when that drawer falls apart or somebody's computer doesn't work or the phone doesn't ring properly, that's when people get really frustrated. So if you help them through that transition, I think it takes your relocation or renovation all the way through the process.
Absolutely. I don't show the new employees the space until honestly like a day or two before, when it's all done, the punch list has been done, because it's fine to get employees suggestions. However, they're going to want to change everything. And if you show them, I just found myself, if you show them, this is how it is, here you go. Again, we give them their input with the artwork and other things. Of course, working with the local office manager, you're going to say, hey, do you need 2 microwaves? I'll let you give your input on what kind of furniture you want for the lunchroom, like little things like that. But that is a good point. I just found that if I take too many people in advance, I don't even I tell them the address, but they can't have access till right before. So, yeah. Anybody else have a quirky, funny story? Nancy.
I was just going to agree with what you just said, because we have just acquired an additional space on one of our floors that it was always, the secret space that some other company had, and no one, saw what was going on behind closed doors. And since we acquired it, we've kept it locked because it is totally different than our space, and bigger offices and fancier workstations. And we didn't really give anyone any ideas that this is what you're going to get, because we will completely demo it and make it ours.
That's where you sit, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the big corner office, that's mine.
I know, and then they're going to want that furniture. I agree.
Actually, the nice thing was they had even offered us the furniture, but nothing went with our current space, so we had to give that all up. But this week, we had the door open for some people coming in and out of there, and the number of staff that poked their heads in, just wanted to take a look, I wanted to know what's back here. It was the worst thing in the world, because now they all think, we're going to get this and we're going to get that. No, we're not. So I agree with you. Don't let them see too much ahead of time. Definitely get input about what they need, what their needs are.
Right, just show them the finished space. Here you go.
So it's
trust me.
Yeah, and food also works. I liked your comment about, as the process is going on, reward people with pizza parties, lunches, snacks, things like that, because food goes a long way.
And they take pride in it too, they take ownership, okay, I'm going to take care of my area. And the second task after retrofitting the 90 cubicle triple wide trailer was to renovate my Chicago office. So I had just started, and that was my second task to do. So that took a period of 18 months to do it. We did it in stages. We took on extra space. And as to not inconvenience everyone else, I personally moved my office 4 different times. We did have to move people a couple of times, but at the end I couldn't find anything. So I just, you make do, you make the best of it. So I've lived through both. Personally, I think it's almost easier to move an office and start from scratch, just my own personal experience, than to retrofit in place, because you're dealing with some of the workers' language, jokes, that you can hear them through the plastic screen. Let's see, what else? What they did over the weekend.
Overtime.
Yeah, and just, living in dust. And personally, I always advocate to relocate if we can. So, how about anyone else? Question, story, tip?
Linda, what's your typical lead time for, I guess you work backwards, lease expiration, how much time have you been planning?
Right, so for a big office, like our Philadelphia office is one of our larger spaces, we actually started 2 years in advance, because I had never been to Philadelphia. So I went out there, I met our broker, he showed me several properties, and then, as I mentioned, I had to go take the president and then the local office director. So I went out there probably 3 or 4 times before the actual move. But let's say a mid-size office, I would really recommend starting 1 year in advance, because time is on your side. You have more time to negotiate. You're going to be able to say, visit maybe, 8 different places and choose the best, and recommend maybe 1 to 2 places to your decision maker. But again, you can kind of pit them off each other, saying, well, they have this amenity, or they are offering this per square footage, or they're going to give me 6 months free rent, you're only going to give me 5. Chances are, they know darn well they want your business, they're going to up it. So for a mid-size office, I would say a year in advance. Now, a smaller office, let's take it, let's say you're going to downsize an office, maybe to a Regus Executive Suites. There's usually only 1 or 2 in the area. So, you could probably do that in less than 6 months, because that's kind of a no-brainer. You're going to downsize to a fully furnished space, and then probably just, donate your furniture or such. Another interesting story that comes to mind is you're going to have to make sure depending on your business, if your clients require you to be in a certain county. That Alexandria, Virginia office I showed you with our name on the top of the building, I took the president out, he blessed the office we were going to get. We were at the airport, and my cell phone rings, and it's the local managing director, and he says to me, by the way, is that in Wayne County? So I'm like, I said, let me call the broker. I asked the broker, it was not in Wayne County. So we actually had to disqualify the office we had chosen, and we went with our plan B. But could you imagine signing the lease, moving into a building, and not having the prior or the proper requisites from the client? Our engineering field, they require us to work in the county and have the presence of where we do business. Very important to know. So something, just food for thought. That's something I learned the hard way, but luckily we figured it out right before. Yes, Kevin.
Can you tell us how many square feet a big office is? What do you consider a big office, medium, and small? What are you looking at? Or employee number, yes.
Sure. Well, at my current firm, we have 300 employees firm-wide and 100 in Chicago. So our headquartered office in Chicago is about 40,000 square feet. But in my prior life, I managed a large law firm in the Sears Tower. I'll never call it Willis Tower. So in the Sears Tower, 9 floors, 300,000 square feet. So, and that was for 600 employees. So, I mean, it depends.
Is your Chicago office your largest office?
It is.
So 40,000 would be large.
Yeah, and then maybe Philadelphia is maybe 25,000. New York is probably 25,000 to 30,000 square feet.
So as a rule, you're looking at least to be a full floor tenant.
For the larger offices, yes. Right. Yes. And that's true. That's a good point, Kevin, because a broker is going to show you maybe a full floor, and maybe you only need a chunk of it. And they're not always so thrilled to divvy up space, because it's harder to lease the smaller spaces. So it's nice if you can find a smaller space to begin with for a smaller office, but they'll work with you. Yes?
Michael Dallin Collins, recent graduate of IIT and student for the FNP credential.
Great.
And this is great because this actually is the case study covered in our project management module that I'm attending, so thank you. I feel like I'm ahead.
Oh,
Thank you,
great.
Jerry.
Good.
What I did want to ask is, you talked about communication, and I was wondering if, I saw your format regarding social media, and you read about brochures and newsletters. Are there any other formats for communicating with employees that you would suggest?
Well, what we did mostly is for our Chicago headquarters office relocation. The emails would come from me, and we wanted to always let people know that when it was an email from me, we put a cute little like bus, like bus driver move that bus for the extreme makeover. So we said extreme makeover office edition. So anytime people saw that email with that heading from me, they knew it was about the office move. So really, we did it through email. We kept them updated. Okay, phase 1 is going to involve this, and the accounting department is going to move to a swing space while we renovate their space. And this weekend, we're going to install the sprinkler systems. And this weekend, you can't come into work because they're going to be retrofitting all the new lights and things like that. So we also put up like floor maps so people could see the new layout, and invited everyone to come. Again, we just let them know in advance, here's the big picture. We'll tell you way in advance. If you're planning on working on a weekend, you might not want to come in because they're going to be hammering or removing walls or laying carpeting. So really mainly by email is how we communicated. And then the social media is to announce when we have moved. And of course, the separate communications to vendors and movers. We actually do postcards. Our marketing department will send out a postcard to all of our clients. Our Las Vegas office has moved. Effective April 1, they will be located here. You also have to let your vendors know, like FedEx, UPS, USPS. I mean, there's so many things. So I really hope you will give me your business card. This is the Excel spreadsheet. It's alphabetized just because it helps me not have duplicative efforts. And again, if you don't have a business card, you can take one of mine and email me. I'll be happy to send you the checklist. Do we have any other questions or points? Or
Linda?
Yes.
I had one more thing that you had said something about the emergency, having to know who your team is.
Uh-huh.
I think and I do this in every move because I learned the hard way. Back in 1991 with the Chicago River, the flood.
Yes.
We had just moved in over the weekend into the Metro building, and I didn't know that was on all the water from the river flooded down into the Metro tunnels. That was the old train tunnel, and our basement's 4 levels up, filled with water, and the city shut that building down, and I had just moved everything in there.
Oh.
And the building was shut down, and so I had no alternative space. So now I always have a swing space just in case. So I don't think people think of that in terms of emergency. I had to set up our phones and FedEx in my house because we didn't have any until the broker could scramble and we could find a place. And then of course the city was down because there were no phones. You couldn't get lines, and so I stole some from a law firm. I didn't want to, that was the old and because I had been down the basement, and so we pulled some lines over and we kind of, but anyway.
Did you have mattresses?
Pardon?
Did you have mattresses to throw into the river?
But
I mean, that was a disaster.
Yeah, exactly. And just knowing your building emergency evacuation, where are the stairwells? Most buildings do, 2 evacuation drills a year, but you really need to have your team in place, especially when I worked in the Sears Tower. We dealt with 9/11. I worked in the tower when you're talking about the flood. Funny story, I was actually expecting at the time, and the HR director called me and said, you need to evacuate because the city is flooding. And I'm on the 78th floor of the Sears Tower thinking, I think it's up this high. We are all in trouble. I didn't ask any questions. I just got on the elevator before they turned them off and went home. And when I got home, I watched the news. And I'm like, oh, that's what they're talking about. But, sometimes you don't ask questions and you just leave. So kind of a funny story when I think back on it. So everyone should have one of these program evaluation forms. Please fill it out, and you can turn it in on the way out and get some Ifma bucks for filling it out. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and again, feel free to come on up. Before we let everyone go, I want to invite Christine O'Halloran up here for a minute to talk about our mentor program.